He convinced me to give him our $200, $0 inheritance to start a business, then disappeared with the entire sum. And now he's fighting me in court over our house worth $750, $0 claiming I stole everything. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this, but here I am. It all started with a gut feeling that something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. My wife was always been a little high-maintenance, bossy, and quick to lie when she thought she could get away with it. But I loved her, and I wanted things to work. We'd been married for 8 years, and honestly, I thought I knew everything about her, or at least I thought I did. The first signs of trouble started about 6 months ago, became more distant, more irritable. She'd leave her phone around more often, hiding texts and messages from me, which was unusual. She started working late more frequently, claiming it was just her boss pushing for deadlines. But I noticed her phone bill was suddenly riddled with calls to this guy named Jake, an old college buddy she claimed she hadn't seen in years. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured maybe she was just catching up with an old friend. Then came the bigger signs. She started dressing differently, more revealing, more flirtatious. She'd come home late, smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. She'd brush me off when I asked about her day, claiming I was just paranoid. But I was. I could feel it in my gut. Something was going on, and I was determined to find out what. One night, I decided to check her phone when she went to bed. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I couldn't sit still anymore. I knew I had to see if she was hiding something. I waited until she was asleep, then snuck into the bedroom and unlocked her phone. The moment I saw her messages with Jake, my stomach dropped. It wasn't just friendly chatter. It was flirtatious, suggestive, and downright inappropriate. She was talking about meeting for sex, saying she couldn't wait to see him again. That was the moment everything changed. I felt a cold rage bubble up inside me. How could she lie to my face for months? How could she pretend everything was fine when she was sneaking around with another man? I felt betrayed, crushed, and furious all at once. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure what to say or do. I just knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was normal anymore. The next day, I found her in the kitchen. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. I told her I knew about the messages, that I'd seen everything. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she started lying right then and there. She said it was just a misunderstanding, that Jake was just an old friend she was catching up with, and that I was overreacting. She told me I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her. But I knew better. I saw the way she looked at her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. I saw the way she lied through her teeth. I felt my blood boil. All the years of marriage, the memories, the promises, I started questioning everything. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this after everything we'd been through? I was angry, yes, but mostly I was heartbroken. I loved her so much, but I couldn't ignore what I'd found. I wasn't going to be the fool who stayed quiet while my wife cheated behind my back. That day, I made a decision. I told her I wanted a divorce. She spat back that I was overreacting, that she loved me and she'd never do anything to hurt me. But I saw right through her bullshit. I knew she was lying, and I knew I had to get out before this got worse. I started planning my next move, how to protect myself, how to get my life back. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without consequences. After I confronted that morning, everything changed. She threw a tantrum, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying on her, and crying crocodile tears about how much she loved me and how I was ruining everything. But I wasn't about to buy her sob story. I could see right through her manipulation. She's always been good at lying, at twisting things around to make herself the victim. That's her style, bitchy, demanding, and utterly selfish. I told her I needed space, that I was serious about ending this. She begged, of course, saying she'd change, that she was sorry, and that she'd do anything to fix it. But I wasn't having it. I knew her better than that. She lied her way through everything before, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. I started packing my things, trying to keep my head clear even as my heart was pounding with anger and heartbreak. In the days that followed, I dug into our finances. I knew I had to be careful because I didn't trust her not to do something stupid or destructive. That's when I discovered she had convinced me to give her our entire $200, $0 inheritance to start a business. She'd been talking about expanding her boutique, saying it was her dream. I thought I was helping her build something for our future, but it turns out she'd been planning to run off with the money all along. I found out that she'd secretly taken the inheritance, transferred it into her own account, and then dumped a huge chunk into some shady online investments. I could see the transaction details. She'd been siphoning off our money for months. And when I confronted her about it, she just shrugged and told me I was overreacting, that she was using the money to build her dreams. Yeah, right. Dreams that apparently involved her sleeping with Jake and wasting our life savings. That's when I decided I needed to take control. I hired a lawyer, started looking into what I could do legally. I also discovered she'd been secretly seeing Jake at a fancy downtown hotel on weekends when she was supposedly working late. I had a friend who was a private investigator, so I hired him to follow her. Turns out she'd been sneaking out at night, meeting Jake and spending hours with him. I saw the photos. She was clearly cheating and she was lying about everything. Meanwhile, kept spinning her stories, insisting she was innocent, accusing me of being paranoid, of spying on her out of jealousy. She called me controlling, insecure, and said I was turning into the villain, but I knew better. I had proof. I had her messages, her bank transactions, her secret meetings. Every lie she told just made me angrier, more determined to get justice. I felt like I was losing my mind. I loved her, but I couldn't ignore what I'd found. I started thinking about everything. The years we spent together, the promises she broke, the trust she shattered. How could she be so cold? How could she betray me like this? It was like waking up from a nightmare, but the nightmare was real. I was hurt, furious, and I knew I had to fight for what was rightfully mine, my dignity, my money, my life. The most shocking part came when I found out she'd been lying about the house. She claimed I stole everything, that I'd been sneaking around and cheating just like her. But I had the receipts, proof that I'd paid for that house with my own money, that I'd made every mortgage payment, that it was legally ours. She was trying to paint me as the villain when she was the one cheating, stealing, and scheming. I realized she'd been planning this for a while, trying to take everything from me, including our home. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I was going to fight her in court. She thought she could walk all over me, lie her way out of this mess and keep everything. But I wasn't going to let her. I was done being the victim. I was going to fight for my rights, for the truth, and for my future. The betrayal hurt more than I can put into words, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I couldn't let her win. Not like this. Things escalated quickly after I decided to go to court. His attitude shifted from manipulative to downright hostile. She started accusing me of every crime in the book, saying I'd stolen money, that I was a cheater and a liar, and that I'd been secretly planning to kick her out of the house for months. Honestly, her lies became more outrageous by the day. She'd spin stories about how I was controlling, how I'd been abusive, stuff I knew was completely fabricated. But she was good at twisting facts, making herself look like the victim. Meanwhile, I was digging deeper into her financials. I had to be thorough because has always been a master at hiding things. I hired a forensic accountant to track every dime she'd spent, and what I found was shocking. She'd been funneling money into secret accounts, buying luxury items, even paying for her trips with Jake. I found receipts for hotel stays, expensive dinners, and gifts, all paid for with money she'd secretly taken from our joint accounts. It was clear she'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even longer. The court case was a nightmare. She hired a slick lawyer who kept twisting everything I said. She claimed I was violent, that I'd been cheating on her, and that I'd been stealing from the house. It was exhausting, hearing her lie under oath, trying to turn the tables. I had plenty of proof, bank statements, messages, witness testimonies, that showed she was the one betraying me. But's charm and her ability to manipulate the system made it feel like I was fighting a losing battle. One of the most unexpected moments came when her lawyer brought up the house. Insisted I'd been stealing from her, claiming I'd forged documents to take her share of the property. She spun a story that I'd been secretly planning to kick her out and keep everything for myself. But I had the original mortgage papers, the proof of payments, and the deed. Everything was in my name because I paid for most of it. Still, she kept insisting I was a thief, that I'd lied about everything. It was during this trial that I learned had been secretly seeing Jake all along, meeting him at hotels, sending him messages, and even planning to run away with him after she got her hands on the house. The worst part, she lied about her feelings, told me she was trying to fix us, while she was secretly planning her escape. That realization hit me hard. Her betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was calculated, cold, and ruthless. I also discovered she'd been making plans to sell the house behind my back. She'd been talking with real estate agents, trying to find someone to buy it quickly. I caught wind of it through some of her secret emails. I was furious. That house was my investment, my property, and she was trying to cash out without me. I confronted her about it in court, demanding that she couldn't sell or transfer ownership without my approval. The judge agreed, but I knew this was far from over. Throughout all this chaos, I felt an overwhelming mixture of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and even hopelessness at times. I loved, but I couldn't believe she'd do this to me, to everything we built together. It made me question everything. Was I ever enough? Did I miss the signs? Could I have done something different? But mostly I felt betrayed. She had lied to me, cheated on me, and tried to steal everything I worked so hard for. In the middle of it all, I realized I had to focus on protecting myself and my future. I started preparing for the worst, thinking about what life would look like if I lost everything, or if she managed to get away with her schemes. I knew I had to stay strong, stay calm, and keep fighting for what was right. It wasn't just about the house or the money anymore. It was about my dignity and my ability to trust again. I couldn't let her destroy me, not without a fight. The courtroom battles dragged on for what felt like an eternity. His lawyer kept trying to paint me as the villain, claiming I'd been controlling, cheating, and even stealing, just like it accused me of. But I had my evidence, and I was ready to fight fire with fire. I brought in witnesses who could testify to her manipulative behavior and her secret meetings with Jake. I had bank statements, texts, and recordings that proved she'd been planning her escape for months. One of the most intense moments came when the judge asked directly about her affair. She sat there looking smug at first, then started stammering when faced with the mountain of evidence. She everything, claiming I was lying, that I'd been unfaithful first, and that I'd been trying to ruin her. But her words sounded hollow, rehearsed. I could see the guilt in her eyes. She was trying to spin her way out of it, but her lies were crumbling fast. Meanwhile, I was feeling more emotionally drained than ever. Every day I sat in that courtroom, I felt like I was losing a piece of myself. I loved once, but her betrayal had shattered that love into a million tiny pieces. I was angry at myself for trusting her, angry at her for doing this, and angry at the situation that had turned into a war over money, trust, and our future. The biggest shock came when her lawyer tried to claim that I'd been secretly planning to cheat her out of the house, that she was the victim, that I'd forged documents, manipulated the system. I almost lost my temper. I had the original mortgage papers, the proof of my payments, and the deed. I told the judge that I'd been planning to sell the house behind my back, that she'd been talking to real estate agents, trying to cut me out of the picture. The judge looked at the evidence and told her she couldn't sell or transfer ownership without my approval. That was a small victory, but it wasn't enough to undo the damage she'd already done. As the court proceedings continued, I started to realize how deep her lies went. Had been secretly seeing Jake at hotels, sneaking around behind my back, and even planning to run away with him after she got her hands on the house. I found out she'd been making plans to leave town, too. Start a new life with him somewhere far away. That realization cut me like a knife. She'd been betraying me emotionally and financially for months, maybe longer. The emotional toll was heavy. I'd loved her so much, and now I was fighting to keep what was rightfully mine: my house, my money, my dignity. Every time I thought I'd seen the worst, something new would come up. It was like peeling an onion. Layers of lies, deception, and betrayal kept revealing themselves. I started questioning everything. Did I miss the signs? Was I blind? How could she have lied to me so easily? Despite all the pain, I knew I had to stay focused. I couldn't let her win. I had worked too hard for everything: our house, our savings, my reputation. I started putting together my final arguments, preparing to show the court that I was the rightful owner of the house, that I hadn't stolen or lied about anything. I also filed for full custody of the house and asked the court to freeze her assets, just to prevent her from selling or hiding anything else. Throughout this process, I kept thinking about the moment I first met, how she seemed. So charming, so perfect. And now I see her for what she really is: a manipulative, selfish woman who used me and then tried to destroy me. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: I'm done being her victim. This battle isn't over, but I'm determined to come out of it with my head held high. I refuse to let her get away with this, not without a fight. The court sessions took a toll on me. Every hearing felt like a blow to my confidence, but I knew I had to keep fighting. His lawyer kept trying to paint me as a bad guy, claiming I'd been controlling, unfaithful, and even trying to steal the house. It was infuriating. I had all the receipts, all the proof that I'd paid for that house, that I'd been the one supporting us financially for years. But her lawyer was a master at twisting words and sat there, acting innocent, crying crocodile tears whenever she needed to sway the judge. One day, her lawyer brought out a new angle, claiming I'd forged documents, manipulated the system, and was secretly planning to cheat her out of her rightful share. I felt my blood boil. I had the original mortgage papers, the proof of every payment I'd made, and the deed signed and registered. I told the judge that I'd been secretly talking to real estate agents, trying to sell the house behind my back. I had emails and texts proving her plans. The judge looked at everything and ruled that she couldn't sell or transfer ownership without my approval. That was a small victory, but it was never enough. Kept spinning her stories, claiming I'd been cheating on her, controlling her, and stealing from her. She even accused me of physically abusing her, something I knew was a lie. I'd never raised my voice, never laid a hand on her. It was her way of trying to turn the court against me, but I had witnesses and evidence to counter every false claim. What hit me hardest was discovering she'd been secretly meeting Jake at hotels, spending hours with him, planning her escape. I found out she'd been talking about leaving the country with him after she got her hands on the house. It was like a punch to the gut. She'd been lying to my face, pretending to care, while behind my back she was plotting her new life with her lover. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. Meanwhile, I was trying to stay composed, but inside I was a mess. I loved her once, but now I saw her for what she truly was: a manipulator, a liar, someone who'd betrayed everything we had. I kept thinking about all the promises she'd broken, all the years I'd spent supporting her dreams, only to find out she'd been planning her betrayal all along. The worst part came when I uncovered her plans to sell the house. She'd been talking to real estate agents trying to find a buyer. I confronted her with this and she everything again. But I had emails, messages, and witnesses who confirmed her scheme. I told her she wasn't going to get away with it. The judge agreed, saying she needed my consent to sell or transfer the property. Still, I knew this was far from over. All this time, I was battling a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief, and frustration. I loved her, and I still wanted to believe there was a way to fix this, but the evidence kept piling up. I felt like I was losing grip on reality, on my own life. I wondered if I'd ever trust again, or if I'd just become someone hardened by betrayal. The pain was intense and the betrayal cut deep. Through it all, I realized I had to focus on protecting myself and my future. I started preparing for the worst. What if I lost everything? I kept gathering evidence, talking to my lawyer, and planning my next moves. I knew I had to stay strong, no matter how much it hurt. I had to fight for what was mine: my house, my dignity, my peace of mind. I refused to let her win, not without a battle. I knew that the truth would come out eventually, and I was determined to see that happen. The final court hearing was intense. After months of fighting, lies, and betrayals, I knew I had to lay everything out on the table: proof of my payments, her secret meetings, the forged documents, everything. I sat there, feeling the weight of all the pain, anger, and exhaustion pressing down on me. Sat across from me, looking defiant, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She knew. She was losing. When the judge finally announced the verdict, it was like a breath of relief mixed with a heavy sense of finality. The court ruled in my favor. I was the rightful owner of the house and was ordered to vacate within 30 days. The judge also ordered her to pay back the money she'd stolen from our inheritance and barred her from selling or transferring the property without my approval. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about reclaiming my life. As I walked out of that courtroom, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd won the legal battle, but the emotional scars ran deep. I realized I had been living in a kind of fog, trusting someone I thought loved me, only to be by her lies. The betrayal had changed me. I was more guarded, more cautious, and painfully aware of how little I could truly trust. In the weeks that followed, I moved out of the house, leaving behind the memories of what used to be. I started therapy, worked on rebuilding my sense of self, and slowly I began to heal. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I felt angry or hopeless, but I knew I couldn't let her define me. I had to find a way to move forward, to learn from this nightmare. Looking back, I realize how much I underestimated her. I thought I knew her, but I was blind to her manipulations. The most important lesson I learned is to trust my instincts and never ignore the small signs of trouble. People can hide their true selves behind a mask for a long time, but eventually the truth comes out. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I'd say this: stay vigilant, protect your assets, and never let anyone make you feel guilty for fighting for what's rightfully yours. Betrayal cuts deep, but you have to remember your worth. Don't let anyone steal your peace or your future. It hurts now, but time does heal, and eventually the truth will set you free.